Hello, everyone. This is William del Pilar, your favorite conservative Latino. And we got a one story show tonight, but it's going to be a heavy hitting show because we're going to do a deep dive into Tucker Carlson. Has Tucker Carlson lost the plot? Has he gone from a Fox truth teller to a pathological narrative spinner whose latest New York Times interview expose some blatant lies, expose what he does on an everyday basis. But with the New York Times, now the whole world saw it. Whether you agree or not, the evidence is there. It's a matter of which path you choose to go down. That's what we will be talking, along with, does he have unresolved daddy issues? We won't spend too much time on that portion as we talked about it in depth about a month ago. We're also going to touch on his driving crusade against Trump and Israel now as well. With that, let's bring on the panel for tonight. We got the G-Man and Ms. Annette Ross. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Good.
Yeah, well, to give a little plug there, we got a great Red, White, and Rude episode where we featured Russell Brand and his Christianity and the charges he's facing, along with a heated dive into Hassan Piker. I hope you enjoyed that when it comes out. You'll find that at Grumblings Media Culture. Make sure you follow us at Grumblings Media Politics on YouTube, Grumblings Media on Rumble. Your odds are you're listening to us on one of those two platforms. Make sure you hit like and you share the episode. That is how we will grow. All right, guys, let's get right into it. Tucker Carlson, 10 seconds. When you hear the term Tucker Carlson on that, what do you think? 10 seconds.
Think he's great.
Okay, that's quick. G.
I'd think of someone who I used to think someone who speaks truth to power.
You used to, okay. I think pathological liar, daddy issues, and grifter. Relevance, insecurity. That's why he lies. All right, that's my take. As you can tell, we have different takes on the panel tonight, which should make for some interesting discussion. So Tucker used to be the right's sharpest skeptic before his father died, taking on corporate power, foreign wars, and Democratic Party leadership. Now he's doing the New York Times Magazine confessional, blaming billionaires, millionaires, and billionaires. Well, he's a millionaire, so it's billionaires, Zionists, and Trump for a war he spent years fear mongering about. In his defense, he said he has had an about face. In that same New York Times sit down, he's been caught lying about what he said, including whether he floated the idea that Trump could be the Antichrist. That's what's really making the waves. And it's making the waves because it's such a great example of what many feel he does day in and day out. To make it worse, he tried to walk back his own role in building the Trump movement. Add to that the whole Huckabee fiasco, Herzog Epstein lie. In fact, these are just the ones, as I told the panel earlier, I needed a little extra time. I didn't know where to start with the lies. So these are just a handful, people. Herzog Epstein lie. Tucker Fossey claimed Israeli President Isaac Herzog visited Jeffrey Epstein's island. He relied on bogus files later exposed as AI generated garbage and internet rumor. Then there was the airport detention nonsense. He framed a routine Ben Gurion security screening as being detained and harassed over his views. This, despite footage showing him smiling, hugging staff, posing with them for pictures, and moving through normal passport control. The Chabad smears. This is the one where it really gets down to anti-Semitism. He smeared Chabad and religious Jews with insinuations about their power and motives. He fed into long-standing anti-Semitic tropes instead of critiquing policy on its merits. He talked about fake Christian prosecution narrative. He pushed a story that Israel is purging Christians and that there are more Christians in Qatar than Israel. He distorted the demographics. Actually, the Christian faith is growing in Israel. And he misrepresented church leaders who actually blamed the war, immigration, and regional instability, not on an Israeli purge. So Jeremy Boring nailed Tucker's tactics as epistemic disclosure. And what do I mean by that before we go to the panel? Is when he does a lot of assumptions and portrays them as fact. And when challenged, he struggles to actually provide the evidence to back it up. So this is the first of a handful of clips we will be showing. This is the New York Times interview.
JD has been subject to, this is well known, but I'll just confirm it, nonstop treachery from people on the neoconservative side.
Who are these people?
Around Marco Rubio. And they have been totally against JD Vance from the very beginning.
Who do you mean specifically?
I don't know is the real answer. I don't know.
You're accusing people of treachery, so I'm wondering.
Well, I know there's been a lot of treachery for sure. And I know they were so mad about JD getting that job. I mean,
who's they? Within the White House?
I don't know the answer to that. I've never worked there. So like, if you don't work there, you can say, you can say what you think you know, but it's hard to really know.
This is me looking skeptical.
Yeah. Well, no, but it's me being honest. Like, I don't really know.
10 seconds, Annette. Your thoughts when you hear him say it's well known, but then when called to the mat, can't provide one iota of evidence.
I just thought he was protecting people. I thought he didn't want to name names.
Well, actually, Annette, he could have said that. Well, I don't want to, I got to protect my sources, AKA my son. I got to protect my sources. He could have said that and chose not to. Gee.
No, I think he was just talking authoritatively and making a claim. And then when she asked for specifics, then he had to walk it back and say, well, I actually don't know. And I think that's the truth. He doesn't know. And he just made that up. What I've heard is Rubio and JD Vance are like best buddies on the team. So
whoa. How do you back it up? Where's your source, G?
Now, I can't really say, but this is what I've read. And I believe it was like the Wall Street Journal or something. But again, like, I'm just making that claim and you can only take that for face value. Same thing with Tucker. I don't think he really knows. And I think he's been shut out by the administration. So
he said well known. He said well known.
Up.
He said well known. It's well known that's happened. All right. So let's start where Tucker finally said the quiet part out loud. That glossy New York Times interview where he tries to rewrite his own story in real time. Oh,
great. By the way, that reporter was great.
I thought she did a great job. No argument here. Okay, so in the New York Times interview and video, Tucker presents himself as a reluctant Trump supporter who has now bravely, quote, withdrawn his support, unquote, over the Iran war decision. He claims he's heartbroken, but principled. So let's go to the Antichrist question, which he tried to deflect. Well, he didn't try. He was in full denial of it. He says he never suggested Trump might be the Antichrist. Then the reporter produced the receipts and notes showing he raised exactly that image in the interview. So let us go to the Trump is the Antichrist. All right, here we go. This is what has completely made the, what am I trying to say?
What's gone viral?
Yes. Thank you, G. It's gone viral.
What I was saying, which is you cannot mock other people's gods and put yourself in their place, period. That is a deal killer for me. That's worse than the war with Iran, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I ask because, you've been talking on your show about whether Trump is the Antichrist.
I have not said that.
On your show, the day after Easter, you noted he did not put his hand on the Bible during his swearing-in ceremony as president. You said, and I'm quoting, maybe he didn't put his hand on the Bible because he affirmatively rejects what's inside that book. And then on a recent show, you went further saying, here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist?
I actually did not say, could this be the Antichrist? Here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods, and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist? Well, who knows? I don't know where that comes from, but I know that those words never left my lips because I'm not sure I fully understand what the Antichrist is. If there's just one, I actually tried to understand it. I may have said some are asking that. I'm not weighing in on that because I don't understand it. Just to be totally
No, in
clear.
Revelations, obviously, the.
Okay, so Another point that he always brings up, I don't know that, or I don't really understand that. He said that, remember what's an ally when it comes to Israel? But then Country John says Qatars are probably our best ally in the Middle East. He does that a lot. Before we get to the discussion points, G, your thoughts above all the, stop laughing, your thoughts.
No, I'm sorry, but I mean, I liked Tucker up until about 2 weeks ago, but this is the deal killer for me. Like, how do you,
It's a deal
with a
killer.
straight face, go, that never came out of my mouth, and it was 2 weeks earlier that it did. This wasn't like 2 years ago. Even if it was like 2 months ago, I might have said, okay, maybe he forgot. This is 2 weeks, and he's sitting there going, well, Trump's mocked the God of gods, and like, I'm a Christian. I've been a Christian since I was 17. I don't think Trump's ever done that. So Tucker's playing some kind of weird vendetta game in order to get back at Trump. And then he knows how embarrassing it is to say, "Oh, well, could he be the Antichrist?" To be fair, he said, "Could he be the Antichrist?" But everything he had said before then led up to that conclusion, which was a rhetorical question in my mind from Tucker's point of view. So I know that wasn't brief, but that was a deal
Annette.
killer for me.
Okay, no, I
Yeah,
get it. Annette.
he said, "Could this be the Antichrist?" And I actually watched that. No, I actually watched that monologue, and I thought what he was saying was like, "Could this be the Antichrist?" I didn't really relate it to that. He meant it by that he was referring necessarily to Trump. Like I thought he meant it more in a broader sense. Like, could this be the Antichrist? Like, is he being influenced in this way? I guess I don't think he thinks Trump is the Antichrist at all. But I would say this, what really bothered me about it more than anything was his flat out denial. And then she said, "You did say that." And then he said,
Those
"Oh,
words never left my
he just
lips.
denied it." Then I was like, wait a minute. I have been really like, I watch his shows. I will watch an entire 2 hours with someone he's interviewing. And I found him to be like just an honest person. I believe him. And all of a sudden this I found to be really like, wait a minute, what's going on with this guy?
I watch them too, and I came across too many of these. Again, I'm on social media every day researching for shows, reading
Yeah.
articles. So I saw this immediate a year ago. And that's why we stopped subscribing to him. We subscribed to him for a year. I was like, man, he's everywhere. He says this, he says that, then he contradicts himself. And at the time I wasn't documenting anything. I just started noticing it anecdotally.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I've had enough because I supported him because I thought Fox did him wrong. That
Mhm.
quickly went away. It's one of my most embarrassing moments supporting Tucker Carlson with money. I was one of the 7,000 subscribers.
To be fair, we all contradict ourselves. And I think we could all look back on previous shows, even we've had to be like, yeah, I wonder, did I mean it when I said that? Or like, do I still feel that way today? But this is very, very, because even when he knew that he said it, he didn't say, "We know what?" At the time, I must have been thinking this. He still sort of denied it. And it was like the proof was right there in front of them. I don't,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
All right.
to be fair, and this
Yeah.
is going to be a really rare Tucker defense moment.
Yeah.
She did not play that clip in front of him.
Oh, she
That
didn't?
was overlaid
Just
later.
us?
No, she told him. She told him.
She
Oh,
read the
And
transcript, but then
okay.
right.
inserted the video clip later.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
To me, that's a moot point.
Well,
The
I
it
fact
is a
that he
moot point.
lied.
But there are people on Twitter saying, "Oh, well, that's dishonest because she didn't play that clip for him." Well, it's not dishonest. Doesn't matter whether it was inserted later. He still lied about not saying it. Those words never left my lips. Doesn't
They're,
matter that she added this clip later.
they're trying to do what my friend tried to do when we were kids. We saw Van Halen in concert. And it's like 20 years later. Yeah, you remember when we saw Van Halen? 'Cause you never saw Van Halen. He saw the video of the concert. You weren't there. You weren't there, you moron.
you know what bothers me the most about it, William? And you already got mad at me on the last show, and then so you didn't call me beautiful at the end. I just want to say that because you were mad at me. But what bothers me the most,
I'm not that petty. I didn't call you beautiful because I'm always saying it. I got to throw some balance in there. I don't need Bill knocking on my door one day.
no, silly. No, I'm just making a joke. But what bothered me the most about it was we all have things that we forget that we said. And then maybe you'll say, "Annette, you said this." And I'll be like, "No, I didn't." And then maybe you could show me a clip of something I said in the past on a show and be like, "Oh my gosh, I did." He said those words never left my lips. Like, he was so sure of it. I mean, he
And
He
again, it
does
was
that all
just
the
2 weeks
time.
prior. Just 2 weeks prior. It
He does
wasn't
that
2
all the
months.
time. He
yeah,
does. He remember Annette about a month and a half ago. We played his greatest hits, lie after lie after lie after lie. Mo- He's a pathological liar, and that means he actually believes the nonsense he's spewing. So he's not okay in the head anymore. His dad died, and something changed in him. He's fighting his dad's ghost, in my opinion. All right.
that's really interesting. That's a very interesting take on what is happening to him or what we're seeing. But I
His daddy raised him. His mom abandoned the family, his birth mother. Then he married into the Swanson family, but that was his stepmother. So his dad would have him at dinners. He would bring people over, would converse with him. So whatever good and bad he had, he never, in my opinion, he may not have resolved with his father. And he may have had issues with Israel, but kind of kept it inside because of the love for his father. Just like a daughter with their father, daddy issues. Gee, you got anything?
Hmm.
No, I do, but maybe it will hit better in a later
All right.
question.
Okay. All right. So Trump is the Antichrist by Tucker. Tucker also shifted the blames for the Iran decision to Rupert Murdoch, Miriam Adelson, and other billionaires. He's implying that Trump was pushed into war by Jewish elite donor class, the Zionist lobby. He told the New York Times he wished he hadn't. Well, before I get to that, quick, give me 10 seconds on your thought process on him blaming the Jewish billionaires. Annette.
A lot of the people that I listen to say that they think the very same thing.
Right.
That just
Doesn't make it true.
doesn't
Everybody
make it
thought blacks were
it
inferior
doesn't make
during
it
the
true, but
slavery era.
listen, they okay, to give you love stats, but quickly I'll just say, they talk about the different times Bibi came to the White House, all of these things. They feel that he was coerced into this war.
Yeah, and Bibi did, and prime ministers did that all the time with various presidents. Gee,
Well, it's well known that some Israeli billionaires push Trump. Who? I don't know. I really don't know.
no. He says Rupert Murdoch, Miriam Adelson, and other billionaires. There's a set of billionaires that are politically active
No,
that do,
but you
and the
can also
Adelsons are big ones for the
you can
Republican
also
Party.
say a lot of the conservative Republicans that support this, plus a lot of Democrats. So there are a lot of people out there. Even Bill Maher, who's a really left wing person, I don't know if he's a billionaire, supports this war
Yes, he
because you
does.
cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. If you have a mushroom cloud over Tel Aviv, this is World War III, Armageddon maybe. So you can't allow that. And right now, Iran, and I don't want to go on Iran, I know that's nothing, but Iran's saying we're not going to abandon our nuclear program. So this only validates the war even more.
Tucker told the New York Times he wished he hadn't done the Nick Fuentes interview and that what he really wanted to talk about, I really wanted to talk to Nick Fuentes about this war in Iran. Major topic in my mind to talk to Nick Fuentes about. Despite the fact that Fuentes' sit down was recorded in October 2025, months before Trump's 2026 Iran strikes, making his retroactive explanation chronologically impossible and to many, myself included, clearly dishonest. We're going to check out this video, as I'm sure it's going to be in one of Tucker's top 10 greatest hits that somebody will put together here sooner than later.
I wish I hadn't
And
done the Fuentes interview because,
Really?
yeah, it was totally not worth it. I mean, it was like kind of interesting, I guess, but it was used as I added to the distraction. What I really wanted to talk about was where we were going in this war with Iran. And I spent like a month getting calls from people being like, you're a Nazi. Okay. And I wish I hadn't done that. Not that it didn't imperil my soul.
Thoughts on the fact that he interviewed Nick Fuentes months before the Iran strikes, and first 10 seconds on the fact that, do you think he truly regrets talking to Nick Fuentes? G?
I I think Nick Fuentes is bringing a lot of heat upon himself, and maybe Tucker's getting lumped in with that. So I think that's what he regrets. And then he was just scrambling for an idea. Okay, this war with Iran, but he's just making up excuses. That's a lie, I think.
Okay, hold on. Excuses in what way? Why you?
So
Okay,
he's
I
just
guess
saying,
what I'm asking is why he said it. Why did he say
right,
that,
but
which turned
because
out to
he's
be
thinking
not
for a
true?
reason. Like you just don't. You don't say, well, okay, well, he did say the Nazi thing, right? What he's really saying is, okay, this brought a bad reputation on me, but he doesn't want to say that. He doesn't want to make it about his own reputation. So he's trying to look for another reason to make it a little more palatable. Yeah, Nick went on this rant, and all I really wanted to talk to him was about the war in Iran, right? That's what I'm trying to frame it as. He's trying to think
Okay,
of something that he could have framed it as. Nick wanted to talk about his thing, but I want to talk about my thing. But really, what it was is Tucker was embarrassed that he even got lumped in with him.
fair enough. Annette, your thoughts on if he regrets the Nick Fuentes interview and the fact that it's just an impossibility of what he said and what he wanted to talk to Nick about.
Well, it's not a total impossibility because I watch Nick Fuentes all the time. And he's been saying that forever since Trump got elected that he was going to go to war with Iran. So he was talking about that long before the war actually started. So maybe he meant like the possibility of going to war with Iran, or that there was going to be a war with Iran, or that was always something that was on the table, something of that nature. But yeah, I think he actually totally regrets it, because I do think that people make a lot more out of it than they need to. They just had a conversation. He finds him interesting. He is interesting. I don't love all of his shows, but I do watch him, and I think that he goes off track. He says things that I find to be really terrible, and that part of him bothers me, but he says things that I think are absolutely, like, spot on as well, and so I'm learning a lot about things from listening to him, and I still find there's value in what I'm learning by listening to him, so I do, like, catch his show, but he's been talking about the war with Iran since way before it started. Maybe
Uh,
that's what he's referring to is what I'm saying.
Thomas Sowell said it best: when you demagogue a culture long enough, that even the rational thinking people will ignore the outliers of hate. Nick Fuentes is an anti-Semite. He's a racist. He's all those things. His own words. I mean, he specifically called G's people. I forget the term because JD Vance is married to his wife is Indian. So at the end of the day, that's who Nick Fuentes is and will always be. And that's Thomas Sowell is to me the greatest intellectual of my generation who was never given his due. A black man who was a Marxist, hated America, coming out of Harlem, self-educated himself after college or while interning, working for the government, and started studying the data, started studying the facts. And that's the type of person that I try to be with the data. G, any comments to Annette?
No, I think it's fine to listen to opposite points of view and all that. I've never listened to Nick Fuentes personally. I've just heard other people talk about him. I don't find his viewpoints valuable to me. And then him coming out as a Democrat today, the whole time, it's like, okay,
Oh,
maybe that's
great
why.
point. Annette, your thoughts on Nick Fuentes coming out as a Democrat? Actually, it was yesterday, wasn't it?
I
I
mean,
only saw today.
you guys don't listen to his show. I mean, so you don't have context. He's been saying for a long time he's gonna vote Democrat in the next.
No. He said he was a Democrat today,
He's just
didn't he, G?
he's not
He
really
said he is a Democrat. Yeah.
okay. Right now he you guys don't watch his show. So again, you don't have any context. He's not really meaning that he's a Democrat. He's an America first.
So you're denying the fact that he says he's a Democrat, that he's not a Democrat?
Yes, he's saying he's a Democrat. He said he's a Democrat.
All right, let's keep moving.
That's not what he means though. It's like me saying I'm a Democrat because I'm so disgusted. Let's say I was disgusted with Trump and then all of a sudden I come out as a Democrat. It's just because he's disgusted. That's why he's saying that. And just because there's some things I can glean from the stuff that he says doesn't mean I agree with all of them. I mean, I think isn't that what discernment is? We take the things that we think are have some value and then we discard the rest, which is what I do with him.
Yeah. No, I
I
think
just
that's
don't
fine.
listen to
But
racists or
I think
anti-Semites.
I've known Republicans who, because the first term of Trump, and they've come back to the fold, but the first term of Trump, they became independent because they didn't like the stuff Trump was doing and saying. but they
Yeah.
didn't become a socialist Democrat, basically.
Right.
That's like agreeing with them rather than disagreeing with the Republicans, right? Which
Right.
is, I know a lot of Democrats who become independent because they are like, I can't support the Republicans, but I can't support
It's a
the Democrats
difference.
either.
It's a difference.
Um,
They're leaving Trump because I don't like Trump. Democrats are leaving because they want socialism and communism. There's a difference. You know, the party of hate. So the picture he wants credit for is breaking with Trump on principle. That's what he says. He's breaking with Trump on principle. Yet he ducks responsibility for years of rhetoric. You yourself said it about Russell Brand on a different podcast. Despite the fact of him being in his redemption, it's hard to look at what he did and go, "Oh no." That's kind of what is being said here about Trump. You said all this for 20 years, and now you're like, well, I was wrong, or this or that. It's hard to believe, especially with one lie after another. So when Tucker denies saying something and the New York Times reporter literally rolls with seats, how many times do you have to see the pattern before you call it what it is? Lying, not being misquoted. And if you disagree, disagree. Gee, your thoughts on that discussion point?
No, that was the part where I finally got off the Tucker train. I mean, I liked his expose on 9/11 where he thought maybe the CIA let 9/11 happen. Not that they planned it, not that Bush knew, but it was a very sensible idea that the CIA let it happen. They had enough information to stop it. So I'm like, okay, that's not anti-American. It's a reasonable, and he brought the receipts. But then here I'm sitting there going, you've gone off the reservation. At some point, you've supported Putin. You're supporting Hamas, and now you're against Trump, and now you're lying like that. You didn't even say something again 2 weeks ago, not 2 years ago. That that took me off his bandwagon. I'm like, I mean, I'll still watch his stuff, but it's going to be like this, like really suspicious and arms folded, like he does. He sits there
No,
with his arms folded
yeah.
the whole time.
he does.
And then he also said his classic is, "What does that mean? What is that? I don't know what that means. What's it mean to be an ally?" Fast forward, Qatar's our ally. What's it mean to be free? I can imagine what Bill Clinton. What's the word "is" mean? And then your thoughts.
Well, one of his recent monologues, that he sometimes gives before an interview, he was talking about the Sermon on the Mount and saying that that's really what Christianity is based on. There could be a lot of different things going on with Tucker that are factoring in to what we're seeing right now. Maybe we're just like literally witnessing like real time someone's like a complete transformation with someone, or like you said, something else psychologically going on.
Breakdown.
Well, I mean, I really don't know. So I think there's probably a lot of personal things between him and Trump. I've seen it said in the interview, like he's still the funniest person I know, or like I still really love his. I'm still friends with his son. I still really think he's a great guy to be around. But like, obviously, he's deeply disappointed that he wasn't able to get him to see a different viewpoint about this war. And maybe he's just feeling hurt about that, or maybe it's an ego thing. I don't know him personally. I'm saying the reason why I still can watch him is I've watched him interview enough people now. He lets them talk. He listens to what they have to say. He can engage in a really deep intellectual conversation. I still learn a lot from the different people that he has on his show. So sometimes I might not always like get into his monologues and agree with every single point that he makes in his monologues. And sometimes I just downright don't know where he's coming from. I thought the morning of Easter or the day after Easter when he was really upset about Trump's Easter post, I thought, wow, is he going a little bit? Did I like that post? No. I wish Trump had not posted that on Easter Sunday, honestly, or any day. I thought it was inappropriate for the president of the United States to say that. Like it was just obnoxious and rude, and Trump can be that way sometimes. I don't like that at all.
Trump's
But
like that all the time.
yeah, exactly. Okay, fine.
Honey, see, that's the difference. I'll admit it. Trump's a narcissist. You don't become a billionaire. You don't become president without being a narcissist. Trump drives me nuts with how he says things. I wish he wouldn't. We would be so much farther, so much more united if Trump wasn't such an alpha dog, such an alpha male, such a bully. I'll be the first to admit that. But then I look at his results, and I look at Obama, I look at Bush, I look at Clinton, I even look at Reagan to a small degree. I look at LBJ and poor JFK never got a shot. So then I got like, okay, I'll take them out. Why? Because Democrats are just as bad. They just say it nicely, and they have the media to protect them. All right, let's keep moving. G, I asked you a question here. I won't ask Annette because she kind of answered it already. Do you think Annette's kind of saying he's wrestling with issues, or could be? We could be watching that. And my take is yes, I agree with Annette. Of course, we're going to disagree with what he's wrestling with. No, and I'm serious. I don't mean it as a negative or a check. I think we're watching a man slowly lose it in real time on a daily basis. But G, my question to you. So, G, blame Trump, blame billionaires, quietly memory hole how much of that Iran Israel paranoia he himself mainstream. Is he genuinely wrestling with these mistakes, or is he simply on a rebranding tour right now?
No. So here's my take. I remember Rush Limbaugh, and I think it was during
Ditto head.
Trump's. It was either during Bush's second term or Trump's first term, and he said something to the effect of, "When your guy's in power, people stop listening to you, stop listening to Rush Limbaugh." And so the viewership numbers go down dramatically because you're not speaking to the power. You're defending the power. You're carrying the water. And I remember one time Rush said, "I'm done carrying the Republicans' water," right? So he admitted that he was doing that. I want to say it was around 2007 when he said that part. Um, and I think a lot of these conservative or conservative leaning talk shows, they drop in viewership during the time. Maybe this
Correct.
podcast, Republicans won, so they're not watching it as much, right? But if this was Joe
That's
Biden
it,
still,
that's
they'd be
it.
watching this a lot more, right? So I think Tucker's struggling with that too, and he's like, how do I get through the noise like he did during 2022 when he really filtered through the noise because of the Ukraine Putin war? So what I think is it is a rebranding tour. It is only because he's trying to, and it's not that he needs money. I think it's just he wants to be out there in the limelight. He wants to be seen, and I think that's what's driving him. It's his ego, and so you need to rebrand and need to be critical of the guy in power.
Correct. I agree with that. Annette, you kind of gave your answer, but a 10-second response to G.
I actually thought that was super interesting. I never even thought of that before. That's a very interesting take.
And real quick on Rush, Rush supported Trump. And I was a Ted Cruz fan, and he would drive me nuts because Rush wouldn't openly support Trump, but you knew he was supporting Trump by what he said, what he didn't say about Cruz. And God bless Rush Limbaugh because he took all callers, every caller. So a caller said something about, hey, that's what you're doing. And Rush goes, no, I'm not. And the caller gave a couple examples. You got a point. That's what Russ said. You got a point. You may be right. And I was driving to work. I'm like, yeah, but nothing happened. I mean, but the point was, but that's what I liked about Rush. Never turned a caller away. Would always acknowledge his mistakes. The problem with Rush is he was always in an echo chamber. Everybody wanted to agree with him, but when they disagreed, Rush was a good man. He gave tens of millions to various charities. That he was a man who was maligned simply because he believed in conservative values. And that to me is unforgivable on the left because Rush actually, I'm digressing. One more quick point is Rush would sit there and say, all these quotes, ask them where they actually found them. They're made up. He goes, but I realize in my lawyers told me you can't sue everybody. You'll be in court for the rest of your life every day, and you're going to go into jail with tens of millions. So, because I know he was brokenhearted when he was part of a group of potential owners to buy the St. Louis Rams, and they use everything, and he dropped out himself. All right, so well, here's the thing: this isn't the first time Tucker's been caught flat out making things up and then backing off. Only when the evidence corners him, he becomes like a rabid dog. So the Khazar DNA Shabbat smears. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but since we're talking about Tucker, this is one of the most important to bring up. Suggesting that Ashkenazi Jews aren't biblical descendants and calling for DNA tests on Israelis, including Netanyahu, who is not only the prime minister, he is a war hero who lost his brother fighting against Islam. And Bibi himself was a special ops. So the guy not only has done it politically, he did it where it mattered on the battlefield. So he says, hey, even Netanyahu needs to be tested while mocking Shabbat and questioning Jewish attachment to the land. Historians and Jewish leaders call this anti-Semitic pseudoscience with neo-Nazi origin, shades of Nick Fuentes, not just asking questions. He also claimed there are more Christians in Qatar than Israel and implied Israel is purging Christians based on a Jordan video and selected quotes. Technically, he may be right with the Qatar, but that's because they import all Christians to do the menial labor. They're not citizens. They have no rights. So again, distorting that and taking it out of context. Again, I'm saying that, and I have it in my notes here. It's much easier. They're temporary migrant workers without rights. While in Israel, Christians are citizens and they're a growing part of the population, unlike the rest of the Mideast, where their heads are lopped off and they're being genocided. Christian leaders said he misrepresented regional declines caused by war, immigration, and instability, not a targeted Israeli purge. Annette, looking at the Huckabee episode, that I didn't talk about this. Let's go back to the airport detention that about earlier on, where he's click, 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 click. Everything's normal. Going back to his so-called detention, the Herzog Epstein, and the DNA testing, the misframed, to be polite, Christian statistics, and now the New York Times, Antichrist. Do you see a pattern of honest mistakes? Or maybe he's like what G says, he just can't help but lie. Oh, I'm sorry, I say that he can't help but lie. Your thoughts on that? Your honest thoughts. Serious question.
No, I know. I don't want to believe that I guess I like him, so I'm having a hard time believing. But then when I listen to what he's saying, I do think to myself, wow, he really seems to come up on the other side of the Jewish, argument every time. Now he would say, I think that's because he wants us to be focused on America, what's happening in America, and what's happening in Baltimore, what's happening in Gary, Indiana. Let's focus on that and not focus on these foreign wars, on and on and on. The other thing I'm wondering, and I guess I'm asking you because I'm asking myself, what is going on with Tucker and why he's coming out like this and making these strong accusations. Like, is it what he would say? I think it'd be like me saying, I I really can't stand Putin, but does that mean I hate all Russians? Do we really think that he's an anti-Semite? I guess that is my question. I have a
Yes, I do believe he's an I do believe if he's not an anti-Semite, he's playing the role better than any Oscar-winning actor right now. And to your point of Israel, I am not an Israel fan.
of their
I am not. Not even of we're the chosen ones. I don't care what the Bible says about that. I just my belief. I don't believe that. I also don't care for how they segregate amongst themselves. You have to convert completely to them. We give everything to them when we become part of their culture. They give nothing to the American side. And I'm not saying this in a hateful way. It's who they are.
right.
And so my belief has always been you have to accept these people for who, not these people for anybody individually, for who and what they are. And that you have to look at them and go, can I live with who they are? And I made my peace with Israel decades ago, because of how strong an ally they are, of what they ultimately preach: strong family, strong religious convictions, savings, financially prudent. And we've distorted that other cheap bastards. They only care about themselves. Every anti-Semitic trope out of values that we can learn from and use in our everyday lives. But so I don't like how they can be an elitist mentality, but there are allies. I don't judge the Jewish people as a whole. I will judge a Jewish individual, because there have been some Jewish individuals who blatantly throw that in your They don't throw it in your face. It's how they act towards you. Like, I don't want nothing to do with you. And I met a lot of Jews who don't give a rat's tail. So my whole take is I have issues with Israel, but I don't have anti-Semitic thoughts or beliefs. I just, again,
And
when
do you think that Tucker does? Or
I don't have to think. I just listen to his words over and over and over. And I used to listen to Tucker every day for about a year.
right.
And granted, he hadn't quite gone down that road, but he was started to, and I was picking up on that. Again, guys, I am not worldly, but I view myself as a little bit as worldly. 30 some odd countries, living in different countries, having been born and raised under a dictatorship of which I was protected from because I was an American citizen. So that's kind of shaped my views and helped me put into perspective who and what Israel is. And on the last podcast, guys, check out the Red, White, and Rude. Great show. I said that they are the only country where you can have gays, Muslims, Jews, Christians, and who knows what else. And they are the only country in the Middle East that is democratically elected. People hate on, I hate Netanyahu, this, that. Well, then vote him out of office. But more people love him than hate him, which is why he's able to keep and maintain power. I don't agree with somebody being in power that long, but he knows the system. Gee, your thoughts on
Yeah, I
anything?
mean, if you have 4 minutes, I can thumb through my Bible to look for the exact verse, but the it does say
No,
that's a
longer than
reference to
4
Russell Brand,
minutes.
Watch Red, White,
Yeah.
and Rude. It does say, "Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks," right? So if Tucker, I had not heard
Good
anything
book.
about the genetic tests and the Chabad genetics and all that, but clearly he has. And then he's also been thinking about it and wondering if Netanyahu's clearly like
A real
really a
Jew.
Jew and all that. So then if you're thinking about that, then you're going to say it. But like I would have
Mhm.
never said that because I would never thought about it. And
Right.
and then we had talked about it, what, 6 months ago? And now we're talking about it again tonight. And in between those 6 months, I had not thought about it once, right? Now we're talking about it. So
Well, that's because we're putting a collage together of Tucker.
right, right. So exactly. So why is Tucker saying these things? Because he thinks about it. Now, does that mean he's anti-Semitic? I don't know. Could be. But he's thinking about this kind of stuff. And this is why it's dangerous. Hitler, if you go back to the 1930s and Godwin's Walt Law, bring everything back to the Nazis, Hitler actually took his framework of talking about the Jews being less or inferior than the Aryan race from the leftist progressives in America who were talking, the scientists and the universities here were talking about eugenics. And he's
Eugenics,
like,
Margaret
that's
Sanger.
a good idea. That's a good
Mhm.
idea. So let's check all these Jewish people for their traits. They didn't have genetic testing back then, but let's check for their traits. And then if they're not of the right trait, then they're inferior and then they're not worth keeping alive, right? So there's this idea that it starts here and then other people take it to the nth degree. So as
Mhm.
Tucker's talking about this, I don't think he realizes that he might have just started something here. People listening, millions of people watching a show going, "Oh yeah, I wonder if they really are genetically, and if they're not genetically Jews, then what does that mean?" And then they take it to a conclusion that we didn't dare take it to, but they might. And
Mhm.
that's the danger of all this stuff.
And for the record, gee, I know you know, what does Nazi stand for?
National Socialism Workers' Party.
German Workers' Party. Indeed, he was a socialist, and you're right. That's the ugly side of history that isn't taught, but should be part of Hitler to make sure we're aware of our own past demons, so we don't repeat them. We don't do that, which is why we tend to repeat mistakes. Which in my look, everything you said about Tucker, I don't know if he's an anti-Semite. I don't play that game, and I'm not saying it's a game. It's just a term. It's
Right.
because people could have said that about Hitler. Oh, he just wants him to wear a tag for this reason, that reason. And finally, when he took him to the chambers, okay, you're right. He's anti-Semite. But
It's
they
just
could have
like
said
breaking
that,
barriers, and then
yeah.
you're all of a
But
sudden you're here.
yeah,
It's
so in
normal.
my point, to me, Tucker's broken the barrier. He's over and over and over. You, but it's believe what they say. That's what we say about Democrats all the time. Believe what we say, what they say.
Well,
Okay,
question about that. What was the in the interview with the New York Times? I think she referred to a book, and like this book was like a and he said, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." But it was I think it was like anti-Semitic in some way. Did you guys see that part of the interview?
I didn't catch that part.
And I think that was part of your point, both of your points, is that is this leading somewhere that is going to bring. I'm just saying that what I think what he said he didn't know what it really referred to, but I think from what I watched after, what it referred to was like anti-Semitic language or writing that led to what happened with Nazi Germany. Like, and so it's
Right.
like that this, I guess this makes, which her point was, this impacts people in such a way that we go back, like again, we go back into history and history repeats itself.
Oh, Annette, it's a book by Milton Mayer. They
That,
thought they were free, the Germans, 1933 to 1945. And the reference was Navarro, Lulu. It's Lulu Garcia
yeah.
Navarro. She was brilliant. She is, look, I'll be honest. I look at that woman and I fall over that woman. Brain, power. I think she's pretty and like she gets it. I really like that.
But is it really, it wasn't, she was nice the way she just was.
Oh, that's what makes her deadly.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, it's like the knife is in your gut and you're smiling. Well, hey, what's that pain? Well, she's taking you out. So he appeared unfamiliar with the book or the historical arguments, and it was discussion how ordinary people in Nazi Germany processed the gradual erosion of democracy.
Yes. Yeah.
And he wasn't familiar with the book. So the argument that the reporter was using the book to ask if he felt or his audience were becoming desensitized to radical language. And that's me. That's what I see happening. And that's why I get so angry because I've seen the results of that. And that's why I get mad at Americans. Y'all live in your nice, comfortable homes with your couches or apartments, younger generation, and you have no clue how the real world works with what you're falling in love with. And so that's how I do feel the authoritarian shifts that we're seeing. So and I apologize. So what was your point in making that reference again?
No, my point was, by the way he's talking about this, is it a repeat of history? You see more and more people
Oh
now.
yes, yes, no, yes, I believe it's a repeat. See, that's my biggest fear. I don't have to believe that. We can go into history and see how many times it's been ignored over and over. Nations have fallen because they repeat the same mistakes that previous nations. People always think, but they don't realize that's what they're thinking. Oh, we just haven't had the right people implement it. That's the thought process for communism, socialism, Marxism, authoritarianism, the benevolent dictator. They always think, well, we just haven't had the right guy. All right. If this was just about a guy who got some facts wrong, aka Tucker Carlson, that'd be one thing. But with Tucker, there's something deeper going on. And it looks a lot like a mix of pathological lying and some very old daddy issues. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. We spent a whole
Yeah.
podcast on daddy issues, but Tucker's father was a proud Christian Zionist who loved Israel, opposed radical Islam, and saw support for Israel as part of a Christian duty. And I think in that you feel that way in terms of how you view the Israelis biblically.
Yeah.
That's a Catholic way. And I'm not going to, I say it with no shame or malice, but I abandoned that thought process decades ago. Tucker, but I did because that's how I was brought up too. Tucker 2026 has built a brand attacking Israel, Zionists, and even Christian supporters of Israel, such as Michael Huckabee, painting them as a corrupt world lobby and spiritual sellouts. This is rich coming from somebody who's never talked religion until the last 6 months, but he knows who the spiritual sellouts are. It's like a born again. They preach to you about everything Jesus related, and they've been born again for a year. So that's not a mild disagreement he's having, I believe. I believe that's an inversion of his dad's core convictions. So you notice the timing. A hardened anti-Israel, anti-Trump, anti-Zionist Tucker. When did that take shape? It took shape after his father's death as he leaned more into the foreign money, the fringe gas, the great replacement, Fuentes, Kazar content, and his own admission about lying. Annette, did you know this? You can answer after I finish my diatribe. He admitted on air he lies when cornered. Real quick, did either one of you know he said that?
I didn't know.
He lies on air when cornered. Now, in his defense, it takes a lot to admit you're a pathological liar. Because in essence, what he's saying is every time I'm in a corner, I'm going to lie. There's something pathological about that, not directly inherent in terms of what it means to be a pathological liar, but he's knowingly lying. And for the audience out there, you don't believe me, check out his 2021 interview on the Rubin Report, which, by the way, is part of his greatest hits of life. Dave Rubin, who's he? Remember that in that? So even Fox's lawyers defended him by saying no reasonable viewer should take him literally. The Minion text showed him privately trashing Trump and elections while pushing the content to his audience. So privately he's saying one thing, on air he's saying another thing. Now in 2026, he's sitting with the New York Times denying what he just said about the Antichrist, downplaying his role in getting Trump elected and blaming billionaires for the Iran decision. Classic pathological liar behavior. Rewrite history when inconvenient, project blame outward, morph your story depending on who's listening. A son who systematically inverts his father's deepest beliefs after his father is gone and can't answer doesn't look like someone making a calm policy shift. It looks like someone still arguing with his father's ghost in public. You combine that with a documented willingness to lie when cornered to pretend he barely knows allies. Dave Rubin. Who's Dave Rubin? Lord Loomer? Never heard of her. Once they're inconvenient, Loomer, Robinson, Fuentes, Tommy Robinson, and to reinterpret his relationship with Trump now that war and backlash have arrived, that's not a pundit with strong opinions. That's the profile of someone with unresolved father wounds and pathological storytelling instincts who happens to have millions of people hanging on every word. So I had some discussion questions, but let's just get right into it. G, your thoughts on my diatribe?
It could be. Look, like he has a pattern
The
of
political answer. It could be, maybe.
That's your theory, right? It's a great theory. It could be true.
Yeah, yes. No, just to simply say, it is a theory, but I did a lot of research, and going back, I did more research today. So it is backed up by therapists, and
Right,
what
right.
they're
So,
taught.
but here's what I was going to say is one, all of us are influenced by our parents. We either want to be like them or we want to be exactly not like them. There's very rare a person who's like sitting there going, okay, well, I'll take these 5 qualities and not these 5 qualities. They either become very much like their parents or rebel completely against their parents. That's most people. I will say he has a pattern of being a contrarian. And we've talked about this maybe 3-4 months ago. When everyone seems to take one side, he goes, okay, I'm going to take the opposite way. And we've seen that with the Ukraine war. And he's like, let me go interview Putin, and then ends up being used by Putin to spread the Russian point of view. But he brought out a lot of good points opposing the war in Ukraine. He was basically saying, well, how can we always hear about the Russian death counts? We never hear about the Ukrainian death counts. Oh, well, that's a good point. That is an actual good question. I don't know why that is, but I think there's propaganda involved there. Biden was hiding it. Now Trump's not going around saying, "Well, Ukraine's lost 1 million people."
Okay, so G, I'm starting
Okay,
to
so
get
right,
lost.
right.
What's
So
your point?
I'm going off here, but I will say that I think I think Tucker's a contrarian, and that's just the way he thinks. I don't think it's the right way to think, but maybe he's just grasping for attention. Hey, look at me. I'm thinking a different way than
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
else.
I think he's grasping for attention. I don't think he's a contrarian by design. I think it just happens to go opposite of what he's been preaching before, along with
But
everything I said.
that could be
But
a
no, but
result of his
you,
dad. Maybe his
you,
dad said, "You better do this is the truth," and then he's like trying to raise an issue, and then his dad's like, "No, that's not true," and then now you just raise a contrarian because you can't browbeat someone into your own opinions.
yeah, but
That
a
never
contrarian
ends well.
just rejects popular opinion every time, and I think he's beyond that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I can't cross that chasm anymore. Early on, I would, but now he's so deep in it. I'm like, yeah, I can't buy that anymore as I did early on. That's all. Annette, your thoughts on the diatribe? Daddy
Well,
issues,
I
pathological liar.
I don't think that I think it's interesting. What's really also interesting, and I think this totally relates to Tucker, I think he believes himself though. When you
Yes, yes. That's what a pathological liar does.
Yeah,
They actually believe the nonsense they're spewing.
yeah,
It's not something he can help or he plans on. Actually, that's not necessarily true because
intent isn't there.
Yes, but that's only partially true. So finish your thought before I ask you the next question.
Okay. And then I was just going to say that, well, we talked about what could be happening to him real time, but also I think maybe he's very, very deeply conflicted. And when you're sort of, here's what I think
No, you're
about
right. It's
Tucker.
called daddy issues.
Here's what I think about Tucker though too. And I think this about other people that I watch on podcasts. And I think it's an interesting thing to do in a podcast. Like I think he really is trying to find the truth. I do. I think he's in search of it. And I think when you're in search of the truth, it can take you down a lot of unusual paths. And
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Now answer this part of the question to push back against
okay,
In Search of the Truth with Leonard Nimoy, aka
okay.
the new series starring Tucker Carlson.
And isn't that wrong?
He admitted on air when he's cornered, he lies. Dave Rubin, 2021 interview.
I'm sorry, I missed that because my dog made a noise. What did you ask me?
You're saying he's searching for the truth, but he admitted when cornered, he'll lie. How does a truth seeker search for the truth when they're willing to lie?
Well, to me, that's like an 8-year-old boy with his hand caught in the cookie jar. Like, is your hand?
He's a 57-year-old adult.
I know, but I see my own husband act that way sometimes. Where I'm like,
Oh, where's Bill at? Bill, you gonna take that?
yeah, you will have to take it. Where I'm like, didn't you just eat all the ice cream? No, I didn't. I'm like, yeah, it's gone.
But hold on. So, poor Bill, you're comparing. Did you eat all the ice cream? No, to they're racist. They need DNA testing. Don't compare poor Bill to that.
But you're saying that I'm sorry that I shouldn't have done that because that's something very
I'm kidding. We all know that's a joke. We all love Bill.
you're saying that I think that
Racist.
people when they caught in something will just like revert to a lie, like in almost like
Okay. No. A little bit more pushback. His lawyers who defended him at Fox said no reasonable viewer should take him literally. He also said, I love Trump privately. Screw him, bleep him, but this or that. I'm not pushing back,
no,
but
it's
to attack you, that's who Tucker seems to be. Gee, response to Annette.
Well, no, I don't have a response to Annette. I think that is human nature in many ways, but that just shows like, okay, ice cream, cookies, that's
sorry.
one thing. But like, I never said Trump's the Antichrist when you clearly did 2 weeks ago. That's
Yeah,
something different. And you're affecting millions and millions of people. You have a higher level of responsibility to be honest at that point.
that's a
If
good
his own
point.
lawyers are saying, don't take him literally, well, now I can't take him literally.
Yeah, I'm with you. Annette, I want to believe you. And despite the fact you and I starting to go at it a lot, I do want to believe you. I can't cross that bridge. And
I think I've come this most recent like week with Tucker. I
Antichrist,
no,
Antichrist Tucker.
actually since Easter. No, since Easter and his monologues, I've been like, hmm.
Well, here's the other thing too. You guys don't watch Patrick Bet David. I don't know if G watches it regularly, but
Semi-regularly.
Patrick
Yeah.
Bet David was saying, look, you Christians, you Catholics, you need to grow a spine, in essence, he was saying, and start fighting back and pushing for yourself.
Yeah.
And Tucker attacked Patrick Bet. How dare you attack these people? This, that. When he wasn't attacking Catholics or Christians, he was just saying, look, we need to start fighting back. We need to start standing up for yourself. Because he was talking about it was a long diatribe where he talked about how Catholics follow the Pope and the others in Israelis and other Christians of non-denominations. They don't have that buffer person. So he was comparing that and just saying sometimes we need to sit there and stand up for ourselves or something to that effect. And Tucker just went on a monologue against it. It's like that's where maybe the contrarian that G's talking about. There was no reason to do that. He just was picking a fight. Now,
Yeah.
now, Patrick Bet David offered Tucker $100 million to come podcast for him when he left Fox, and he didn't take him up on
Wow.
it. So Patrick Bet David knows talent, but he said, "I'm going to get my piece here." He did a 16-minute response, and at the end, he said, "Hey, I've been accused of being in the pocket for certain factions. Let's get an audit done. You audit yours and your wife, so we know you're not hiding money, and I'll have everybody audit mine." And we'll see where we stand. We'll see if somebody's actually getting paid here. So Patrick Bet David threw it on the map. Tucker won't do that.
Hmm.
And that's a core difference. And I don't agree with Patrick Bet-David all the time, but that's why I watch him, because he is worth a few hundred million, self-made individual who believes in this country, who believes in everything good religiously. He's a Christian. His last view of Iran was turning around and seeing the bridge his father had just dragged them all over being blown up. So he's dying to go back to Iran before they were forced to flee. One of the people who stayed in Germany for years trying to get over. So he understands his country. That's why I love him to death, even though I don't always agree with him. All right. So what I believe is a kicker, while Tucker, I believe, is spiraling into this mix of lies and daddy issue theater, the movement he helped build has mostly decided to move on without him. Again, I'm a data guy. So, Trump versus Tucker. Trump has openly torched Tucker over his Iran stance, calling him someone who has, quote, lost his way, unquote. And that's Trump holding back. Because Trump, he loves giving the nicknames and just bad mouthing people. So he still has some respect for Tucker, or at least his audience he doesn't want to fully lose. So but he also has lumped them into nut jobs. Lump Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens. And we're going to talk about them in a different podcast. And listening has kicked them out of MAGA and the MAGA movement in multiple interviews. Polls and base reactions. The GOP polling now shows Republicans overwhelmingly back Trump over Tucker. We talked about that. And I'm going to put up the latest poll on that just came out last week. So approval is 85%. Trump versus Tucker Carlson. Favorability / approval among Republicans. 85% approve of Trump, 39% approve of Tucker. That's a net plus 6, which means 33% disapprove of Tucker, and whatever was that 6% disapprove of Trump overall. But the approval is 85% clearly on Trump's side. Gee, give me 30 seconds your thought on this poll. And did you like my
I mean,
graphic?
yeah, I didn't expect it to be that drastic, but I think people look at Tucker, but they probably watched the Charlie Kirk Memorial, and he just lacks this emotional intelligence. I mean, he cracked a joke and laughed at the memorial, which I thought was
Yes.
bizarre. You remember that moment?
That's
Yeah.
when
And
he
he
gets
giggled.
nervous. When he gets nervous, he does that. So he was
Yeah.
nervous there, didn't know how to react, so he does that fake laugh.
Yeah, so there's something about him that just isn't like that's just off to me. So I think a lot of Republicans see that, and that's why his approval's
But you were
down that
shocked,
low.
is what you're saying.
I was perplexed, not shocked, but perplexed. Like, why did you tell a joke? I think it was about
G, on
Jesus.
the poll.
Oh yeah, the poll is shocking. Yes.
All right, Annette.
That doesn't even look like Tucker Carlson, does it?
It looks like Tucker Carlson during his bigger days. He's lost weight.
Oh, okay. To me, it's I'm surprised by it. Yeah, I thought.
Which tells us a lot in how you actually see Tucker versus us.
No, that doesn't look like him. So and he's older now, probably too. Yeah, I think that I thought he had a really. I think I looked it up, William. He's one of the biggest conservative podcasters. Period. Like he's way beyond Ben Shapiro and Megan, and he's one of the biggest.
Well, we're going to talk about those numbers,
Yeah.
and those numbers tend to be convoluted. Here today, gone tomorrow, etc.
But these numbers aren't? Wait a minute. So why would some numbers be convoluted and these numbers aren't convoluted?
No, meaning in terms when you start talking reach and engagement. Those are debatable type numbers. All right. So I wasn't shocked. This is what I thought. I think there are sane, rational people. This is the Republican Party. It's not broken down into demographics. So I wanted to give that point because you do have a point. Reach is also determined by various demographic factors.
Yeah.
And I know what you're talking about. You're probably talking to the poll that showed Charlie Kirk, Joe Rogan, and Tucker Carlson are still very popular amongst young men.
Yeah.
I thought I put it in here, but I didn't. Wasn't worth it. No, I'm kidding. I don't know why I did. So even outlets like Breitbart, which supported Tucker, and other outlets, they're now framing Tucker as a problem the GOP has a manager. That's what I've been saying for months, because that's how I see him. I see him and Candace and Megan purposely trying to destroy the midterms simply so they can get their revenge on Trump. They don't care about the country. They care about themselves, their clicks, their engagement, the revenue they're bringing in through these shows. That's more important than actually the country, despite the fact that they say the country's more important. So that's my thought process. And that's what Breitbart and other outlets and Shapiro has been referring to. Everybody hates Shapiro. But by God, Shapiro has stuck to his beliefs from day one, from the day he came on the scene 15, 20 years ago to today. Tucker has not. So New York Times is the validator for me with this. The fact that the New York Times is now one of the most sympathetic platforms says a lot, and Tucker was on that platform. Why? Because he's now anti-conservative, anti-Trump, anti-Republican. When the paper he used to blast is now where he goes to explain himself and blame Trump, that's a sign of who still finds him useful and who doesn't. He's become a champion for the left. So when Trump, the MAGA base, and even big names on the right, like Shapiro, Clavin, Dershowitz, and the Honorable Miss Peril, Jeanine Peril, Judge Jean, Judge Peril, is that how you say it? Peril? Judge Jeanine, yeah.
Judge Jeannie, yeah.
Gene, yeah. When they're all either torching Tucker, ignoring them, or treating him as a problem to manage, while his friendliest long-form treatment now comes from the New York Times and other leftist outlets, like Hassan Piker's uncle, Cenk, is he still a movement leader based on the poll we just showed, or just a highly talented exile whose biggest fans are increasingly outside the very coalition he claims to speak for? Gee.
No, he still has his followers, and it's at 39% that you just showed. But it might actually, I would be interested in seeing the Democrat poll of what kind of support he has. But there's a difference between, okay, I don't agree with everything Trump's doing, I'm talking about me, but I don't go on a podcast and say, okay, here's everything I disagree with Trump. And then next week, I'm going to do that again. And then the week after that, I'm going to do that again, which is what Tucker's doing. Like, be honest where you disagree, and then talk about where you agree, and then move on to the next subject. Because you're not really going to convince people. But when you keep drumming the same thing every week after week after week, you're actually trying to bring down our country by bringing down our president.
All right, so let's do the final segment here in honor of Senorita
Yes.
Annette Ross. X, he's got 15 million followers. YouTube, 5.5 million. The Tucker Network on YouTube, 2 million. Instagram, 6 million. TikTok, he's got about 3.5 million. Over 60 million likes. On the Tucker Carlson Network on Telegram, about 250,000. So what's that add up to? About 12, 13, 14. So he's got about nearly 20 million followers. Now, a lot of those overlap. They may be inactive depending on how he posts, but he still has reach and influence. That's why we're talking about it.
Right.
It's because he has that reach and influence. On the flip side, he only has about actual 7,000 paying subscribers. That's a far cry from the millions he claimed were joining him off cable. What do you make of all that, Annette? And honestly, let me give you my take. My honest take, he's still an influence. That's why we're talking about him. I believe he's losing his influence, but he's still influential, and his base is now growing amongst leftists. So he's still a growing influence. It's just to the other side. And as a former champion for this side and how people perceive them, that's a powerful weapon for the Democrats to have, which is how it's being used right now. But in my take, he's still a powerful influencer. Thoughts?
I totally agree with you. And I think you're right about saying that it's the people that are watching him might be more on the liberal side. And I'm pretty sure, if I've got it right, that Lulu made that comment in her interview, in the New York Times interview, because she said,
hold on, Annette. Just real quick comment on this when you finish your comment. Most of his guests are literally anti-Trump guests, anti-conservative guests he's had on for the last 6 months to a year.
Absolutely. And she was saying it's when he talks about the war and he's negative on the war, right, that's when his numbers go up. So that, to me, is saying that the viewers that are people that are watching that are probably not
Leftist.
concerned. So that's sort of, to your point. And the people that he's had on lately, Joe Kent, and yeah, we could just name them all, and that's
David
pretty much.
Sachs.
Yeah.
Gee, your
I agree.
thoughts?
No, I think he has a reach, and he's always going to have a reach, and he might regain his reach when he goes. Maybe he'll be pro JD Vance or pro Marco Rubio. Who knows? So
Totally
this is a blip along the road, or what?
Well, JD Vance, I'm sorry, G, just to interrupt. JD Vance is starting to distance himself First, he resigned. His son, who's a registered Democrat, Tucker's son, who's a registered Democrat, resigned his position as part of the White House, whatever job he had there. So I think JD Vance is making moves to separate himself
No,
from
and I'm just talking
Tucker.
hypothetically. I mean, who knows? Tucker might go for Gavin Newsom. I really don't know, but he's going to rebuild his audience after the Fox News thing. He rebuilt his audience, so he will rebuild his audience. It's going to be different, but he's going to have that core. He's making 500,000. He should have taken Patrick David on the what'd you say, 100,000,000?
I'll take it.
No, let's be
That's
honest. With
I'll take
nearly
it too.
20 million followers on YouTube alone, he's probably making anywhere from 100 to 300,000. So this 7,000 subscriber base in this new world isn't as relevant as it would have been 20
No,
years ago.
it,
But it
it's
does
pocket
still
change.
say a lot of, but it does still send a massive message of those willing to throw down their dollars for him. Not
But no,
many.
I don't think Tucker has plenty of money. He's not in this for money. Once you
Yeah,
have
he's a
plenty of money,
Swanson
what you
kid.
need now is influence. You want to
Right.
leave a mark. Why is Trump doing what he's doing? He wants to leave a mark in history. Why is
Mhm.
Tucker doing this? He wants to leave a mark on our landscape, our political landscape. And unfortunately, it's not going to be MAGA anymore, and it's not going to be Republicans, I don't think. I don't
No,
know what.
he's going to become the Drudge Report. He'll be there,
Yes,
but will
exactly.
become
But
irrelevant.
that's such a narrow niche. Yeah, hodgepodge of followers.
Yes, 20 million in the grand scheme of things compared to other influences like the Logan brothers or there's this gamer. He's like got buku. His video guy was crying that he makes only 7,000 a month while the gamer himself makes like 1 million a month. So in the grand scheme of things, he has
But I
peaked probably with his follower count, but uh more importantly is I think he's losing his relevancy because at the end of the day, Democrats don't really openly welcome long term these what they view as useful idiots, the Marjorie Taylor Greens. I'm not saying they are, but that's how they view them as useful idiots, the Marjorie Taylor Greens and Tucker Carlson. Go ahead, G.
I would just say briefly, his reach is only 5 million because it all comes down to YouTube and that
Yes.
YouTube number. Because I bet you every single one of those YouTube people are subscribed to him on X, on TikTok, Telegram, or whatnot. So the ones that are really watching every episode is about 5 million out of 330 million people in America. That's not that big.
Okay, I'm going to extend this podcast series by just a few minutes here because, G, you were talking about the left, and there was a quote that I'm sure you're aware of that from a leftist, Seth Dillon. Give us your thoughts on this. Clearly, Trump is both an antichrist sorcerer casting subservient spells on everyone around him and a powerless puppet who only does what he's told. Thoughts?
So this is referencing what he said in the New York Times interview, saying Trump has this way about him where you get into this kind of fog and you just want to believe everything he says. And then he said something about it's supernatural and it's like he's casting a spell and it is supernatural. And and he wasn't being metaphorical, in my opinion. It sounded like he really believed Trump had the supernatural thing. I just call it charisma. That's
Oh,
not
no.
supernatural.
You don't subscribe to him. He does believe. He says he was attacked by demons. He is all into, in fact, all the UFO stuff, he says those are actual demons, that we all have it wrong. That you have it wrong, G. They're demons. That's his belief. I'm not misquoting him. That's what he said. Uh,
No, I did see that part of it too. I think he was on with Joe Rogan and he said that. So yeah, but he does believe that, but even in the New York Times thing, it's like, okay, so who sounds like a nut right now? Like, okay, I believe there's supernatural things, but Trump is channeling supernatural spells to keep Tucker in line? Like, no, it didn't work. Look what Tucker's doing. It didn't work. So what is Tucker talking about?
I don't know. You tell us. And then your thoughts on the fact that the left is kind of repeating what Tucker was kind of saying.
What do you mean?
Clearly, well, what he's saying is he's kind of just parroting the left is parroting what Tucker is saying. The point being, the left is using what Tucker is saying for their own benefit. Thus, Tucker's really undercutting the conservative movement, which hurts us in the end.
You mean are they sort of making fun of him?
I think they're kind of making fun of him there,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. They're able to use his own words against us, is the point. Your thoughts on that? You're seeing it in action, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy. What Seth Dillon, we're talking really about what Seth Dillon said, how he used that
Yes.
phrase. I sort of felt like when I saw that he was making fun of Tucker, and I thought to myself, the spiritual warfare that Tucker talks about a lot, like you guys described it. I remember the thing you're talking about, William. He did say he was attacked by a demon. Um, is a very real thing. So that's something that I really believe in. That's probably why I give Tucker some credibility to say those things out loud. People think that you're actually crazy. And that's sort of why the interesting thing about that is people on the left, I think, who seems like maybe have like less formalized religion. And
Right.
so it's like,
Or
right.
they just don't believe in religion like or in God like we do.
Yeah, it's sort of different. Maybe they call it spirituality. And so he's taking a chance and being brave by talking about his experiences with his faith and how his faith has evolved and what he believes now. I just think this whole thing is sort of what you said earlier, William. There's something deep and psychological that might be happening with this man who,
He's falling apart in front of our eyes. Okay, guys, real quick, I want your 10-second comment on this comeback to Seth Dillon's post, which I thought is classic because it's such an oxymoron. He's literally Hitler, but also controlled by the Jews. I mean, how big an oxymoron is that, G? And isn't it true that's what they say? He's Hitler, but then the Jews control him. How can that be?
Yeah. No, and even Tucker said, okay, he has this supernatural spell where he can control people around him, but he's doing Netanyahu's bidding. Come on, make up your mind.
Annette.
yeah. Guess you guys are getting me with Tucker. I had this thing for him, and it's just all deconstructing right here on Fired Up.
All right, no, I get it. It's true. It's an oxymoron there in terms of that comment there. All right, so let's close the show out. Any final thoughts before we close the show out with the golden hits? Gee, any final thoughts on Tucker?
Look, I want unity in our party. I just hope Tucker can come. You can be honest and disagree, but to the degree that he's gone off the reservation, like he needs some serious soul searching.
All right, Annette, final thoughts on Tucker.
Yeah, I thought it would be easy to let it go for me, William. You know what I'm saying? Except
that's what I find frustrating. For me, I'm a data guy. And I'm like, there's all the data. What's it going to take? Each person has go down their own path. The way of that book from the 80s, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. If y'all remember that book,
yeah,
it was a big book.
he's lost some credibility, and the New York Times interview was really revealing to me. And so I'm sort of taking a stand. I'm sort of really taking standing back a little bit.
All right. Okay, let's close it out with his greatest hits. This was in demand. This was like, you got to play this.
Okay, I love it.
And then this is a refresher course for you.
Okay.
Hamas is a group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization.
Raised some eyebrows this week when you said that Hamas is more like a political organization than a terror group.
I didn't say that.
And as someone who has zero interest in participating in any kind of boycott, much less against Israel, I'm just not interested. I'm happy. Whatever, buy the hummus. And I was on Twitter, but I kept getting texts from people like, oh, they're so mad at you about the hummus or something. Hummus. Since when is hummus Jew? It's an Arab food. The one person we know who has crystal clarity on what's happening, not just in this country, but in the world, someone who's watched it and chronicled it for years now, his name is Douglas Murray. I know Douglas, and I think that I've always gotten along with him, and I think that he's clever, but he's hardly an expert on anything.
Well,
So,
right.
like, what? Dave Rubin, whoever that is. Dave Rubin, though, does he matter? That's why Dave is like just a child. Like, you don't pay any attention to Dave.
Tucker blurbed my book. He wrote, Dave Rubin is one of the bravest, smartest people I know, as well as a tremendous television presence.
I think U.S. military aid to Israel and the implied security guarantees, some explicit, but many implied security guarantees of the United States to Israel probably haven't helped Israel that much long term. It's a rich country with a highly capable population. Like every other country, it's probably best if it makes its decisions based on what it can do by itself. That country couldn't exist not for a week without U.S. backing. Calling people names, anti-Semite, isolationist, to get them to stop talking is not the way to serve your country. That's all I'm saying. And a bunch of low IQ Republican senator warmonger freaks.
Annette, did you see that picture there? That's who I made the image out of. Was that shot
Yeah.
there? Just
America's supporting Israel because it's an ally.
I don't even know what those words mean. I'm just saying principle.
They're an ally, right? I mean, they both.
I don't know what that means to be an ally.
To say we don't care what the president of the United States wants in his foreign policy.
That's not the behavior of an ally. What if Qatar was our closest ally? Again, not promoting Qatar. I'm not moving there. I am, however, tomorrow buying a place in Qatar.
final thoughts on the video, G. 10
It
seconds.
goes back when he's cornered, he's just going to say whatever comes to mind. I'll just leave it at that.
Annette, final thoughts on the greatest hits there. That's part one.
I'm in shock, William. I'm in shock. I'm gonna have to. I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight.
Good. Good. All right, guys. For me, this isn't about canceling Tucker. Everybody can speak wherever they want, but I had the right to turn my back
Yeah.
when he speaks. It's about finally admitting that the guy who told us he lies when he's cornered might be cornered all the time now and pathologically lie on a daily basis. I hope you have enjoyed the show. This was a long, drawn-out show. I tossed the rules for time limits because I knew it would go down this road. But it's a show for our ages, at least the fired-up ages. And thank you for watching. Do not forget to follow us on YouTube and Rumble. At Rumble, under Grumblings Media. At YouTube, Grumblings Media Politics. For the beautiful Ms. Annette Ross, and the handsome Studley G-Man. I am William Del Pilar, your conservative Latino. Stay safe and stand strong. Until next we meet. Hey, everybody, this is William Del Pilar, founder of Grumblings Media, and I want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our all-volunteer efforts at Grumblings Media, smash the subscribe button right here. 100% free, and please consume and share our great content. Click either one of these two boxes for more of our work.